How did you do that? Welcome again to my channel, everyone. This is Trev from Traverses, and today we're going to continue the reading of the book Spare, written by Prince Harry. Before I say anything else, I must say to you all that I really appreciate your responses in the comment section, and those of you who have texted me and said something about the book that I'm reading, Spare, written by Prince Harry. I appreciate every single comment, whether you say let's read it or let's not read it, whether you say you want to fact check it or whatever it is that you have said. I appreciate it. I thank you so much, even if it's just for stopping by and listening for a minute or two. Thank you so, so, so much. For the new people who are coming in, who are listening, I hope you are enjoying the reading. And to my old travelers, I want to say, I want to say thank you for your continued support. Old meaning those of you who have been here with me for a long time. Thank you all so, so, so much. So today we are going to continue. Today we are going to continue the reading, and we are on to chapter 45. But I'm going to go back a little bit and read chapter 44 so that we can continue the thread of thought into what is to happen next. Now, for those of you who are just coming in, we are at the point where Harry has proposed to Meghan. The wedding date has been set. Now, the palace is coordinating what Meg should wear and what she shouldn't wear to the wedding. Remember now, she's a divorcee, and the palace has strict protocols as to how to incorporate that information into any services or into their regimental workings, if you understand what I'm saying. And so Harry spoke about how he had to go with his grandmother and her assistant Angela into her closet, a place he said he'd never been before, so they could look at the tiaras that his grandmother was offering for Meghan to choose which one she was going to wear to the wedding. And I thought that was very, very gracious of his grandmother. And now he's having a struggle because he's trying to get in touch with the woman, Angela, who is supposed to be the last thread in the hem of what's going to happen with the tiara that Meghan has chosen. And he's not getting any answers. So he's a little concerned about what is going on. Because as we have seen in this book, there are times when he's thinking that one thing is going to happen because he's royal, and then something else happens because somebody tries to slight him for some reason because he's not the heir, he is the spare. So let us continue with the reading, my friends. Thank you all so much for coming. And for those of you who look forward to the reading every day, I appreciate you sincerely. Yesterday, I asked you all to tell me what book you'd like me to read after this, because we are now at 82% of this book, which means that we should be finished within the next 7 days or so. And I'd love to continue reading for you. So you pick a book or I pick a book. Now let's move on. We are on to chapter 44 of part 3. Though the press was mostly laying off Meg, mostly staying focused on the approaching wedding, the harm was already done. After 18 months of trashing her, they had riled up all the trolls who were now crawling out of their cellars and lairs. Ever since we had acknowledged that we were a couple, we had been flooded with racist taunts and death threats on social media. Yeah, see ya later, race traitor. But now the official threat level used by palace security to allocate personnel and guns had reached vertiginous heights. In pre wedding conversations with police, we learned that we had become the prized target for terrorists and extremists. I remember General Denat saying I was a bullet magnet, that anyone standing next to me would be unsafe. Well, I was a bullet magnet again. but standing next to me would be the person I loved most in the world. There's been some reporting about the palace deciding to instruct Meg in guerrilla warfare and survival tactics in the event of a kidnapping attempt. A best selling book describes the day special forces came to our house, grabbed Meg, put her through several intense days of drills, pushing her into back seats and car boots, speeding away to safe houses, all of which is utter nonsense. Meg wasn't given 1 minute of training. On the contrary, the palace floated the idea of not giving her any security at all because I was now sixth in line to the throne. How I wished reports about special forces were were even partly true. How I longed to phone my mates in special forces, have them come and train Meg and retrain me. Or better yet, pitch in, protect us. For that matter, how I wished I could send special forces to go and grab that tiara. Now, the tiara is talking about is the one that Meg had picked out of the collection that his grandmother had introduced to her, but now he's having a problem getting in touch with Angela, who is his grandmother's assistant and the one who is the caretaker for the tiaras. He's not getting any response, and this is quite bothersome to him. Let's continue. Angela still hadn't delivered it. Meg's hairdresser had come in from France for the rehearsal, and the tiara still wasn't there. So he had gone back. Again, we phoned Angela. Again, nothing. Finally, Angela appeared out of thin air at Kensington Palace. I met her in the audience room. She put before me a release, which I signed, and then she handed me the tiara. I thanked her, though I added that it would have made our lives so much easier to have had it sooner. Her eyes were fire. She started having a go at me. Angela, you really want to do this now? Really? Really now? She fixed me with a look that made me shiver. I could read in her face a clear warning. This isn't over. Hey Jojo, what's up? How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Welcome, welcome into the live. Thank you so much, my dear. I hope you're having a fantastic morning as I am. Welcome, guys. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to hit that like button and don't forget to share out the live and invite your friends and family and friends to come on over and listen to the reading of Spare written by Prince Harry. Chapter 45 of Part 3. Megs had spent months trying to soothe her father. There was always something new that he had read about himself, something derogatory he had taken to heart. His pride was constantly wounded. Every day there was another humiliating photo in the papers. Thomas Markle buying a new loo. Thomas Markle buying a six-pack. Thomas Markle with his belly hanging over his belt. We understood. Meg told him we knew how he felt. The press, the paps, they were awful. Impossible to totally ignore what's written, she acknowledged. But please, do try to ignore them in person. Ignore anyone who approaches Daddy. Please, be on guard against anyone who pretends to be your best friend. He seemed to be listening. He started to sound as if he was in a better place mentally. Then, the Saturday before the wedding, Jason phoned us. We have got a problem. What? The Mail on Sunday is going to run a story saying that Meg's father has been working with the Paps and for money has staged some candid photos. We immediately phoned Meg's dad, told him what was coming. We asked if it was true. Had he staged a bunch of candid photos for money? No, hell no, Meg said. He might be able to kill this story, Daddy, but if it turns out you are lying, we'll never be able to kill a false story about ourselves or our children again. So this is serious. You must tell us the truth. He swore that he had never staged any photos, that he hadn't taken part in any such charade, that he didn't know the pap in question. Meg whispered to me, I believe him. In that case, we told him, leave Mexico right now. A whole new level of harassment is about to rain down on you. So come to Britain. Now, we'll arrange for an apartment where you can hole up safely until your flight. Air New Zealand, first class, booked and paid for by Meg. We would immediately send a car with private security to pick him up. He said he had things to do. Now Meg's face changed. Something was up. She turned to me again and sighed. He's lying. The story broke the next morning, and it was worse than we feared. There was video of Meg's father meeting the pap at an internet cafe. There was a series of farcical stage photos, including one of him reading a book about Britain as if studying for the wedding. The photos, reportedly worth £100,000, seemed to prove beyond all doubt that Meg's father had indeed been lying. He had taken part in this fakery, maybe to make some money, or maybe they had some leverage on him. We didn't know. Headlines read, Meghan Markle's father, a con artist, staged candid photos for money. A week before the wedding, this now became the story. Though the photos had been taken weeks before, they had been held in reserve until the most devastating possible moment. Soon after the story broke, Thomas Markle sent us a text. I'm so ashamed. We phoned him and texted him and phoned again. We are not angry. Please pick up. He didn't answer. Then we heard, along with the rest of the world, that he had apparently had a heart attack and wasn't coming to the wedding. there are, there's always a mole. There's always a mole, I tell you, my friends. Always. And sometimes when we read stories about celebrities and famous people, we shouldn't like jump on it and say, oh, well, this is true, well, this person did that, unless the person speaks on it themselves. If the person hasn't spoken on a topic, I am the last one to ever believe, because these people, they will write some junk about you. You yourself have no idea. They will give you boyfriends and girlfriends and opportunities and losses and gains that you never heard of. That's what they do. That's how they make their money. So I am I am going with whatever Harry says in his book because it's his experience. It's what he wrote, as opposed to going by anything that I've read in any magazine or any books written by anybody who claimed to be following the royal family. Now let's move on to chapter 46 of part 3. The next day, Meg had a text from Kate. There was a problem with the dresses for the bridesmaid, apparently. They needed altering. The dresses were French couture, hand sewn from measurements only, so it wasn't a big shock that they might need altering. Meg didn't reply to Kate straight away. Yes, she had endless wedding related texts, but mostly she was dealing with the chaos surrounding her father. So the next morning, she texted Kate that our tailor was standing by at the palace. His name was AJ. This wasn't sufficient. They set up a time to speak that afternoon. Charlotte's dress is too big, too long, too baggy. She cried when she tried it on at home, Kate said. Right, and I told you the tailor has been standing by since 8 a.m. here at Kensington Palace. Can you take Charlotte to have it altered, as the other moms are doing? No, all the dresses need to be remade. Her own wedding dress designer agreed, Kate added. Meg asked if Kate was aware of what was going on right now with her father. Kate said she was well aware, but the dresses. And the wedding is in 4 days. Yes, Kate, I know. And Kate had other problems with the way Meg was planning her wedding. Something about a party for the Page boys. The Page boys. Half the kids in the wedding are from North America. They haven't even arrived yet. It went back and forth. I'm not sure what else to say. If the dress doesn't fit, then please take Charlotte to see AJ. He's been waiting all day. Fine. A short time later, I arrived home and found Meg on the floor, sobbing. I was horrified to see her so upset, but I didn't think it was a catastrophe. Emotions were running high, of course, after the stress of the last week, the last month, the last day. It was intolerable, but temporary. Kate hadn't meant any harm, I told her. Indeed, the next morning, Kate came by with flowers and a card that said she was sorry. Meg's best friend, Lindsay, was in the kitchen when she turned up. Simple, a simple misunderstanding, I told myself. All right, all right. So they're sort of headbutting about the dress for Charlotte, and the dress is too big, it's too long, it's too baggy, it's too this, it's too that. I know during weddings, emotions do run high, and Megan was clearly stressed out. A wedding, a royal wedding, is can imagine if a pauper's wedding can be so stressful. Imagine a royal wedding, all the stresses that comes with that. That's something that I would just lay down in bed and say, "Come marry me right here. Just lay right beside me. Have the pastor stand over the bed, do the honors, and then let's go to sleep." That would be me because I don't take stress well. When I'm stressed out, I go lay in my bed, cover my head, and go to sleep. I can't deal with it. But this, I can imagine, was very stressful for Megan, having her father have a heart attack a few days before the wedding, then having it seems as though he really did sell her out to the paparazzis, and then having a problem with the bridal party and her sister-in-law most of all. I can't imagine how stressful that must have been for her. But let's move on to chapter 47 of part 3. On the eve of the wedding, I stayed at Coworth Park Hotel, a private cottage. Several mates sat with me and had drinks. One commented that I seemed a bit distracted. Yes, well, there's been a lot going on. I didn't want to say too much. The business with Meg's father, Kate, and the dress, the constant worry about someone in the crowd doing something crazy. Better not to talk about it. Someone asked about my brother. Where's Willie? I gave another non answer, another sore subject. He had been scheduled to join us for the evening, but, like Meg's father, he had cancelled last minute. He had told me just before he attended tea with Granny, "Can't do it, Harold. Kate and the kids." Had reminded him that this was our tradition, that we had had dinner before his wedding, that we had gone together and visited the crowds. He held fast. "Can't do it." I pushed. "Why are you being like this, Willie? I was with you the whole night before your wedding to Kate. Why are you doing this?" I asked myself what was really going on. Was he feeling bad about not being my best man? Was he upset that he'd asked my old mate, Charlie? Was he upset? What was he upset about? The palace put out the story that Willie was the best man, as they had done with me when he and Kate married. Could that be part of it? Or was it a hangover from Beardgate? Or was he feeling guilty about the business between Kate and Meg? He wasn't giving any indication. He just kept saying no, while asking me why it even mattered so much. "Why are you saying hello to the crowds, Harold?" "Because the press office told me to, as we did at your wedding." "You don't need to listen to them. Since bloody when?" I felt sick about it. I'd always believed, despite our problems, that our underlying bond was strong. I'd thought brotherly I'd thought brotherhood would always trump a bridesmaid's dress or a beard. Suppose not. Then, just after leaving Granny, about 6 p.m., Willie texted he'd changed his mind. He'd come. Maybe Granny intervened. Whatever. I thanked him happily, heartily. Moments later, we met outside and got into a car, which drove us down to King Edward Gate. We hopped out, walked up and down the crowd, thanking people for coming. People wished us well, blew us kisses. We waved goodbye, got back into the car. As we drove off, I asked him to come have dinner with me. I mentioned maybe staying the night, as I'd done before his wedding. He'd come for dinner, he said, but wouldn't be able to stay. Come on, please, Willie. Sorry, Harold. Can't. Kids. All right, there we go again. The brothers butting heads again. But that there's some sibling rivalry, and that is nothing new. That's nothing unique to their family. Siblings do butt heads a lot, all the time. But let's continue on to chapter 48. I stood at the altar, smoothed the front of my housecoat cavalry uniform, watched Meg floating towards me. I'd worked hard to choose the right music for her procession, and ultimately I'd landed on Handel's Eternal Source of Light Divine. Now, as the soloist's voice rang out above our heads, I thought I'd chosen well. Oh my gosh, guys, I get the shivers. I get the shivers. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But anyway, get a hold of yourself, Trev. Anyway, indeed, as May came nearer and nearer, I was giving thanks for all my choices. Amazing that I could even hear the music over the sound of my own heartbeat as Meg stepped up, took my hand. The present the present dissolved. The past came rushing back. Our first tentative messages on Instagram, our first meeting at Soho House, our first trip to Botswana, our first excited exchanges after my phone went into the river, our first roast chicken, our first flights back and forth across the Atlantic, the first time I told her, I love you. Hearing her say it back, Guy in splints, Steve the grumpy swan, the brutal flight to keep her safe from the press. And now here we were, the finishing line, the starting line. For the last few months, not much had gone according to plan, but I reminded myself that none of that was the plan. This was the plan. This love. I shot a glance at Pa, who had walked Meg down the last part of the aisle. Not her father, but special just the same. And she was moved. It didn't make up for her father's behavior, for how the press had used him, but it very much helped. Aunt Jane stood and gave a reading in honor of Mummy, Song of Solomon. Meg and I chose it. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death, passion fierce as the grave. Strong as death, fierce as the grave? Yes, I thought, yes. I saw the Archbishop extend the rings, his hands shaking. I'd forgotten, but he clearly hadn't. 12 cameras pointed at us. 2 billion people watched on TV. Photographers in the rafters. Massive crowds outside, roistering and cheering. We exchanged rings, Meg's made from the same hunk of Welsh gold that had provided Kate's. Granny had told me that this was nearly the last of it, last of the gold. That was how I felt about Meg. The Archbishop reached the official part, spoke the few words that made us the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, titles bestowed by Granny, and he joined us until death parted us, though he had already done similar days earlier. Hey, Winsome, what's up? Chef Andre is here. Chef, what's up? How you been? So good to see you. I hope you're having a great morning, my friends. Let us continue. The Archbishop reached the official part, spoke the few words that made us the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, titles bestowed by Granny, and he joined us until death parted us. Though he had already done similar days earlier in our garden, a small ceremony, just the two of us, Guy and Puller, the only witnesses. Oh, okay. So they did a small wedding ceremony in the garden, and now this was the big ceremony. Okay, I didn't know that. Did y'all know that, guys? Oh, okay. Unofficial, non binding, except in our souls. We were grateful for every person in and around St. George's and watching on TV, but our love began in private, and being public had been mostly pain. So we wanted the first consecration of our love, the first vows, to be private as well. Magically, I saw she stole my thunder come in the place. How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. Good to see you. Unofficial, non binding, except in our souls. We were grateful for every person in and around St. George's and watching on TV, but our love began in private, and being public had been mostly pain. So we wanted the first consecration of our love, the first vows, to be private as well. Magical as the formal ceremony was, we had both come to feel slightly frightened of crowds. Underscoring this feeling, the first thing we saw upon walking back up the aisle and out of the church, other than a stream of smiling faces, were snipers on the rooftops, amid the bunting, behind the waterfalls of streamers. Police told me it was unusual but necessary due to the unprecedented number of threats they were picking up. Boy, guys, I tell you all that I know hatred is something that is ingrained in some people. People will hate you for nothing. Just for this white man of royal descent marrying a woman from America, an actress, a divorcee, and most importantly, a black woman, has stirred up so much hatred among people who all along were probably undercover haters, undercover racists. I said what I said. She stole my thunders in the house. How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Oh my God. We are going to continue the reading, my friends. Once again, I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by. Those of you who are here now and those who will be here on the replay, I appreciate you all. I have been putting the readings in the playlist so you all can just turn your playlist on and let it run. For those of you who missed the live. We are on to chapter 49 of part 3. Our honeymoon was a closely guarded secret. We left London in a car disguised as a removals van, the windows covered with cardboard, and went to the Mediterranean for 10 days. Glorious to be away, on the sea, in the sun. But we were all so sick. The build up to the wedding had worn us down. We returned just in time for the official June celebration of Granny's birthday. Trooping the Color, one of our first public appearances as newlyweds. Everyone present was in a good mood, upbeat. But then, Kate asked Meg what she thought of her first Troop in the Color, and Meg joked, colorful, and a yawning silence threatened to swallow us all whole. Days later, Meg went off on her first royal trip with Granny. She was nervous, but they got on famously. They also bonded over their love of dogs. She returned from the trip glowing. We bonded, she told me. The Queen and I really bonded. We talked about how much I wanted to be a mom, and she told me the best way to induce labor was a good bumpy car ride. I told her I'd remember that when the time came. Things are going to turn around now, we both said. The papers, however, pronounced the trip an unmitigated disaster. They portrayed Meg as pushy, uppity, ignorant of royal protocol, because she had made the unthinkable mistake of getting into a car before Granny. In truth, she had done exactly what Granny had told her to do. Granny said, "Get in." She got in. No matter, there were stories for days about Meg's breach, about her overall lack of class, about her daring not to wear a hat in Granny's presence. The palace had specifically directed Meg not to wear a hat. Granny also wore green to one of the victims of Grenfell Tower, and no one told Meg to wear green. So they said she didn't give a fig about the victims. I said, the palace will make a phone call. They are correct. They'll correct the record. So you see, guys, as I said in a previous reading, I had said that it seemed to me that somebody in the palace was setting Meghan up. Y'all don't have to agree with me, but I felt it from before. Because remember, when no one told her, the palace approved of her ripped jeans. Y'all remember that? The palace approved of her ripped jeans that she had worn to the games. And then, after the photographs came out, and people started talking about her not dressing appropriately because she wore the ripped jeans, the palace didn't come out and defend her to say it was okay. They make it seem as though, oh, because she was black, they try to associate the ripped jeans with her blackness in a negative way. And they didn't come out to defend her. And here it is again. Here it is again. They're not coming out to defend her for having gone into the car before the Queen, even though the Queen told her to get in. They are not defending anything that she does. They are letting the press run with the false narratives. And I say, their silence was complicit. Yeah. But let us continue. We ain't fighting their battles, we're fighting ours. What we're reading anyway. And since it feels like he proposed to me, even though I didn't walk down the aisle, yeah, we're going to continue. Okay, let us continue. I said the palace will make a phone call. They'll correct the record. They didn't. Chapter 50. Willie and Kate invited us for tea to clear the air. June 2018. We walked over one late afternoon. I saw Meg's eyes widen as we entered their front door, walked past their front sitting room, down their hallway into their study. Wow, Meg said several times. The wallpaper, the crown molding, the walnut bookshelves lined with color coordinated volumes, the priceless art. Gorgeous, like a museum. And we both told them so. We complimented them lavishly on their renovation, though we also thought sheepishly of our IKEA lamps, our discount sofa recently bought on sale with Meg's credit card from sofa.com. Oh my God. Oh my God. In the study, Meg and I sat on a love seat at one end of the room, Kate opposite us on a leather clad fender before the fireplace. Willie was to her left, in an armchair. There was a tray of tea and biscuits. For 10 minutes, we did the classic small talk. How are you kids? How was your honeymoon? Meg then acknowledged the tension among the four of us and ventured that it might be back to those early days when she had first joined the family, a misunderstanding that had almost passed without notice. Kay thought Meg had wanted her fashion contacts, but Meg had her own. They had got off on the wrong foot, perhaps. And then Meg added, everything got magnified by the wedding and those infernal bridesmaids' dresses. But it turned out there were other things. There were other things about which we had been unaware. Willie and Kate were apparently upset that we hadn't given them Easter presents. Huh? Easter presents? Was that a thing? Willie and I had never exchanged Easter presents. Pa always made a big deal about Easter, sure, but that was Pa. Still, if Willie and Kate were upset, we apologized. For our part, we chipped in that we weren't too pleased when Willie and Kate switched place cards and changed seats at our wedding. We had followed the American tradition, placing couples next to each other. But Willie and Kate didn't like that tradition, so their table was the only one where spouses were apart. They insisted it wasn't them, it was someone else. And they said, we had done the same thing at Pippa's wedding. Oh my God, here we go again, the tit for tat. We hadn't. Much as we had wanted to, we had been separated by a huge floral arrangement between us. And though we had desperately wanted to sit together, we hadn't done a thing about it. None of this airing of grievances was doing us any good, I felt. We weren't getting anywhere. Kate looked out into the garden, gripping the edges of the leather so tightly that her fingers were white, and she said she owed an apology. Meg asked, for what? You hurt my feelings, Megan. When? Please tell me. I told you I couldn't remember something, and you said it was my hormones. What are you talking about? Kate mentioned a phone call in which they had discussed the timing of wedding rehearsals. Meg said, oh, yes, I remember. You couldn't remember something. And I said, it's not a big deal. It's baby brain. Because you just had a baby. It's hormones. Kate's eyes widened. Yes, you talked about my hormones. We are not close enough for you to talk about my hormones. Meg's eyes got wide too. She looked genuinely confused. I'm sorry I talked about your hormones. That's just how I talk with my girlfriends. Willie pointed at Meg. It's rude, Megan. It's not what's done here in Britain. Kindly take your finger out my face. Was this really happening? Had it actually come to this? Shouting at each other about place cards and hormones? Meg said she'd never intentionally do anything to hurt Kate. And if she ever did, she asked Kate to please just let her know so it wouldn't happen again. We all hugged, kind of. And then I said, we'd better be going. And there it was. So that's what the tension was all about. I know the press kept mentioning that there was tension between them, between the couple, but until now, I would really didn't know why the tension was there between them. Like, I mean, was Kate jealous of Megan? Was she, mm, sort of suppressing some negative feelings of Megan? I don't know. I don't know. I can understand William and his brothers, sibling rivalry, but when it comes to in-laws, I don't know. I don't know. There was probably more going on than he cares to mention here. There was probably more going on. But anyway, we're going to continue. We're on to chapter 51. Our staff sensed the direction, read the press, and thus there was frequent bickering around the office. Sides were taken. Team Cambridge versus Team Sussex. Rivalry, jealousy, competing agendas. It all poisoned the atmosphere. It didn't help that everyone was working around the clock. There were so many demands from the press, such a constant stream of errors that needed clearing up, and we didn't have nearly enough people or resources. At best, we were able to address 10% of what was out there. Nerves were shattering. People were snipping. In such a climate, there was no such thing as constructive criticism. All feedback was seen as an affront, an insult. More than once, a staff member slumped across their desk and wept. For all this, every bit of it, Willie blamed one person, Meg. He told me so several times, and he got and he got cross when I told him he was out of line. He was just repeating the press narrative, spouting fake stories he had read or been told. The great irony, I told him, was that the real villain were the people he had imported into the office, people from government who didn't seem impervious to this kind of strife, but addicted to it. They had a knack for backstabbing, a talent for intrigue, and they were constantly setting our two groups of staff against each other. Hey, the amazing Emma G's here. How are you doing, sis? Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. As always, I welcome you, my love. Meanwhile, in the midst of all this, Meg managed to remain calm, despite what certain people were saying about her. I never heard her speak a bad word about anybody or to anybody. On the contrary, I watched her redouble her efforts to reach out, to spread kindness. She sent out handwritten thank you notes, checked on staff who were ill, sent baskets of food or flowers or goodies to anyone struggling, depressed, or sick. The office was often dark and cold, so she warmed it up with new lamps and space heaters, all bought with her personal credit card. She brought pizza and biscuits, hosted tea parties and ice cream socials. She shared all the freebies she received, clothes and perfumes and makeup with all the women in the office. I stood back in awe at her ability or determination to always see the good in people. The size of her heart was really brought home for me one day. I learned that Mr. R, my former upstairs neighbor, who, when I was in the Badger set, had suffered a tragedy. His adult son had died. You all remember Mr. R we had read about before? The one whose wife had cut the son's hair and emptied the sheet of hair over the balcony, out the window, I believe. And the hair went into Harry's apartment and he got hair on his tongue and on his friend's tongue. You all remember that? Here is Mr. R again, the upstairs neighbor. I learned that Mr. R, my former upstairs neighbor, when I was in the Badger set, had suffered a tragedy. His adult son had died. Meg didn't know Mr. R neither did she know his son, but she knew the family had been my neighbors and she had often seen them walking their dogs. So she felt tremendous sorrow for them and wrote the father a letter expressing condolences, telling him she wanted to give him a hug but didn't know if it would be appropriate. With the letter, she included a gardenia to plant in the son's memory. A week later, Mr. R appeared at our front door at Notcom. He handed Meg a thank you note and gave her a tight hug. I felt so proud of her, so regretful about my feud with Mr. R. More, I felt regretful about my family feuding with my wife. Oh my gosh. Harry's something else. Something else. All right, let us continue. Chapter 52. I hope you all are enjoying the reading as much as I am enjoying bringing it to you. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you so much for Mr. I really appreciate each and every one of you. To those who watch but don't comment, those who listen, and those who pretend not to be listening. Chapter 52. We want to wait. We both wanted to start a family straight away. We were working crazy hours. Our jobs demanding. Timing wasn't ideal, but too bad. This had always been our main priority. We worried about the stress of our daily lives, that it might prevent us from getting pregnant. The toll was starting to be visible. She had lost a great deal of weight in the last year. Eating more than ever. She reported weight. Friends did an Ayurvedic doctor who was there conceived. As I understood it, Ayurvedic medicine supported people into sorted people into categories. I don't recall which categories Dr. sorted Meg into, but she did confirm our suspicion that it might be a barrier to conceiving. Gain 5 pounds, the doctor promised, and you'll get pregnant. You'll get pregnant. Ate and ate, and soon put on the recommended 5 pounds, and we looked hopefully at the calendar. Towards the end of summer 2018, we went to Scotland, the castle of Meg, to spend a few days with Pa. The bond between Meg and Pa always stronger during that weekend. One night, over pre-dinner cocktails, Fred Astaire playing in the background, it emerged that Meg shared a birthday with Pa's favorite young, August 4th. About the Selkies. The what, Pa? Scottish mermaids, he said. They took the form of seals and cruised along the shore outside the castle, within a stone's throw of where we were sitting. So when you see a seal, be advised, you never can tell. Sing to it. They often sing back. Oh, come on. You are telling fairy tales, Pa. No, it's absolutely true. Did I imagine? Did Pa promise that the Selkirks might also grant a wish? We talked a bit during that dinner about the stress we had been under. If we could just convince the papers to back off, we said, for a little while, even just a little while. Pa nodded, but he felt it very important to remind us. Yes, yes, Pa, we know. Don't read it. At tea the next day, the good vibes continued. We were all laughing, talking about one thing and another, when Pa's butler burst into the room, pulling a landline behind him. Your Royal Highness, Your Royal Highness, Her Majesty. Pa sat bolt upright. Oh, yes. He reached for the phone. I'm sorry, sir, but she's calling for the Duchess. Oh, we all looked stunned. Meg tentatively reached for the phone. It seemed Granny was calling to talk about Meg's father. She was responding to a letter Meg had written her, asking for advice and help. Meg, sh- Meg said she didn't know how to make the press stop interviewing him, enticing him to say horrid things. Granny now suggested that Meg forget the press, go and see her father, try to talk some sense into him. Meg explained that he lived in a Mexican border town and she didn't know how she'd ever get through the airport, through the press surrounding his house, then through that part of town and back again, quietly and safely. Granny acknowledged Granny acknowledged the many problems with this plan. In that case, perhaps write him a letter. Pa agreed. Splendid idea. Hey, Courtian. How are you doing, my love? So good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know you're always here, my love, even when I don't see you. I know you are here, and I sincerely appreciate it. Now the noise is going to start in my background because my grandbabies are up. Oh, anyway, we are going to continue. Can you hear them, guys? All right, we are on to chapter 53. Guys, we have only 15% of the book left, only 15%. Chapter 53 of part 3. Meg and I went down to the beach in front of the castle. Chilly day, but the sun was bright. We stood on the rocks, looking out at the sea. Amid all the silky islands of seaweed we saw something ahead. A pair of soulful eyes. Look, a seal! They had bobbed up and down. The eyes were clearly watching us. Look, another! Just as Pa instructed, I ran to the water's edge, sang to them, serenaded them. Aroo! No answer. Meg joined me and sang to them, and now, of course, they sang back. She really is magic, I thought. Even the seals knew it. Suddenly, all over the water, heads were bobbing up and down, singing to her. Aroo! The seal opera. Silly superstition, maybe, but I didn't care. I counted it as a good omen. I took off my clothes, jumped into the water, swam to them. Later, Pa's Aussie chef was horrified. He told us that this had been a supremely bad idea, more ill-advised than diving heedless into the darkest water of the Akavangwa. This part of the Scottish coast was teeming with killer whales, the chef said, and singing to seals was like calling them to their blood-soaked deaths. I shook my head. It had been such a lovely fairy tale, I thought. How did it get so dark so fast? Oh my gosh. I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it, guys. I hope you are enjoying the book as much as I'm enjoying reading it for us. We are on to chapter 54. Meg was late. We bought we bought two home pregnancy tests, one for a backup, and she took them both into the bathroom at Notcott. They've been in action, guys. They've been in action. I was lying on our bed, and while waiting for her to come out, I fell asleep. When I woke, she was beside me. What's happened? His, is it? She said she hadn't looked. She had waited for me. The ones were on the nightstand. I only kept a few things there. Among them, the blue box with my mother's hair. Right, I thought. Good. Let's see what mommy can do with this condition. Oh my God. He's hoping for his mom's blessing on the situation. I reached for the wands, peered into their little windows. Blue. Bright, bright blue. Both of them. Blue meant baby. Oh, wow. Well, then. We hugged and we kissed. I put the ones back on the nightstand. I thought, thank you, Selkis. I thought, thank you, mommy. Guys, I am super excited. It's almost like it's the first time I'm hearing that Prince Harry and Meghan had gotten pregnant. I mean, that's just me. I'm super excited. But anyway, that's the end of chapter 54 of part 3, my friends. Let's see how long chapter 5 is. All right, we are going on to read chapter 55, and that's going to be it for today. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second. Okay, ma'am. All right, let's continue reading chapter 55. Huge was getting married to Jack, and we were deliriously happy for her and for ourselves, selfishly, since Jack was one of our favorite people. Meg and I were supposed to head off on our first official foreign tour as a married couple, but we delayed the departure several days so we could be at the wedding. Also, the various gatherings connected to the wedding would give us a chance to pull aside family members one by one and tell them our good news. At Windsor, just before a drink reception for the bride and groom, we cornered Pa in his study. He was sitting behind his big desk, which afforded his favorite view, straight down the long walk. Every window was open to cool the room, and a breeze was fluttering his papers, which were all stacked in squat little towers, each crowned with a paperweight. He was delighted to learn that he was going to be a grandpa for the fourth time. His wide smile warmed me. After the drink reception in St. George's Hall, Meg and I pulled Willie aside. We were in a big room, suites of armor on the walls. Strange room, strange moment. We whispered the news, and Willie smiled and said we must tell Kate. She was across the room, talking to Pippa. I said we could do it later, but he insisted. So we went and told Kate, and she also gave a big smile and hearty congratulations. They both reacted exactly as I had hoped, as I'd wished. All right, guys, that's going to be the end of the reading for today. I want to thank you all for coming into the live. I want to thank you all for listening. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who have come in, and to all the silent listeners, I appreciate you all as well. Guys, until tomorrow morning when we resume the reading of the book, this is Different Facets, where your journey matters. Have yourselves a great day, my friends.